Well, thank you all for coming this morning. Let me start out by just kind of reading a brief statement with respect to the first case, which involves the sexual assault by Deputy Gabriel Lopez with the Kern County Sheriff's Department. On March 25, 2013, Deputy Lopez and another deputy with the Kern County Sheriff's Department entered the residence of our client, who we're naming as Jane Doe. We're not using our client's true name because she's already been victimized by Deputy Lopez, and in order to at least try to shield her from any further embarrassment, at this point, her name is not being revealed. When Deputy Lopez and this other deputy came to our client's residence, they came into the residence. They were not invited into the residence. They were ostensibly looking for burglary suspects. And in the course, our client, who was sleeping at the time, was aroused out of her bed, asked to go from the bedroom into a living area in her residence. She was handcuffed. Before that occurred, she was patted down by another deputy sheriff. And then during the course of what I'll loosely term an investigation, she was then led back into a bedroom, ostensibly to unlock a kind of a chest. And at that point, Deputy Lopez did a very intrusive search of our client, patted her down in a way where he put his hands under her t-shirt, under her bra, frisked her in a way where he absolutely grabbed her private parts, looked inside her shorts, both front and back, and put his hands down her shorts at the same time. A short while later, there was a male in her apartment. That male was subsequently taken from her apartment by the other deputy that was also in the apartment at the time. About 10 minutes later, Officer Lopez comes back to our client's residence and again lets himself in. He was not invited into her residence, and asked our client if she knew what a full body cavity search was. Now, understand, our client has absolutely no criminal record, has never been arrested in her life, and really wasn't sure what this was about. But Deputy Lopez said, well, I need to do a full body cavity search. And our client at this point is protesting, but she's only 21 years of age. She has been taught to respect the law. And Deputy Lopez ultimately takes our client into a bedroom and to ask our client, we want you to take off your t-shirt, which our client did. Deputy Lopez then said, you need to remove your bra. Well, our client is at this point crying, and again, because she's dealing with a deputy sheriff, agrees, quite reluctantly I might say, and undoes her bra, but still tries to hold her bra in place. Deputy Lopez then starts feeling around her chest and her breast area. Deputy Lopez then says, all right, well, you now need to remove your shorts. Our client is now essentially sobbing uncontrollably, and asks Deputy Lopez, well, can I at least use a towel to cover myself? And Deputy Lopez says, no, you cannot use a towel to cover yourself. So our client then removes her shorts. At that point, Deputy Lopez does somewhat of a search on her private parts again, and now Deputy Lopez says, well, now you need to remove your underwear. Our client at this point is crying uncontrollably, but she complies with the deputy's request. She lowers her underwear, and at this point, Deputy Lopez says to our client, now I want you to bend over the bed. Our client, at this point, was fearing for her life. She didn't know what was going to happen, but she bent over the bed with her hands on the bed, and Deputy Lopez proceeded to grope her, touched every part of her private parts that you can imagine, then essentially said, okay, you can get dressed, and left the apartment. That next morning, at about 7 in the morning, our client called the Kern County Sheriff's Department substation in Tehachapi. Apparently they didn't come on duty that early, so she wasn't able to talk to anyone. She had to go to work. She then called the Kern County Sheriff's Department headquarters at 5 p.m. that same evening, left a recorded message saying that she had been assaulted by Deputy Lopez. The next day, March 26th, Deputy Lopez, in some other investigation involving a peace disturbance, encountered an 18-year-old woman and essentially sexually assaulted that 18-year-old woman. It was then on March 27th, for the first time, that the Sheriff's Department then contacted our client and proceeded with their investigation. Now, I'll take questions from any of you.
Counselor, there's already a criminal case in this regard, so the purpose of the civil case?
Well, the purpose of the civil case is obviously to shed further light and transparency as to what happened in this case. Oftentimes I'm asked in a civil case, well, you're seeking money damages. That's true, but please understand that no amount of money is going to compensate this young woman for what's happened to her. But that is part of the process.
How is she doing that?
She's under the care of a counselor. As you can imagine, she's having a very difficult time. This is very upsetting to her, very upsetting to her family. It's very, very hard on her.
Was there any indication that the department tried to cover any of this up, or were they transparent in revealing information?
Some of you may have been present when Sheriff Youngblood had a press conference, and to Sheriff Youngblood's credit, he said, look, this is all about a culture of transparency in our department. We in no way condone what Deputy Lopez did. We want to see the full weight and authority of the criminal system to be used against Deputy Lopez. And I don't believe there was any cover-up, at least as far as I can see, with the Sheriff's Department. I think they seem to be doing the right thing in this case.
I haven't read it all, but are you directing this toward the individual deputy and or the whole department?
Well, certainly Lopez appears to be a rogue deputy. I think the question that we have is, we know that Deputy Lopez was only a sworn officer for approximately 2 weeks before this had happened, although he'd been an employee with the Kern County Sheriff's Department since approximately September of 2011. We know that he has a criminal record. And we know that, as with all deputies, they go through a psychological screening. I think my question is, this man is absolutely a sexual predator. I mean, he not only assaulted a 21-year-old, our client, the other victim was 18 years old, And there are also allegations involving a much older woman that is still being investigated by the Sheriff's Department and the Kern County District Attorney's Office. This man, you can put whatever label on him you'd like. Sexual predator, sexual deviant. How does a person like this get through the system? How does he become a sworn officer? I think those are the questions that the department needs to ask itself. Who's doing the screening? Are the screeners missing obvious traits? Because I think we all know that anyone who displays this kind of conduct, this is not a first-time occurrence. This is something that usually occurs over a long period of time, and I simply would like to know, how does this person become a sworn deputy on the streets of our county?
What can you tell us about this? I'm hearing a third victim, an older person. What can you tell us about that?
She's 76 years of age. She claims that following some peace disturbance again, Deputy Lopez told her that she needed to be checked by him to find out whether or not she was a victim of rape. I might add that the reason that Deputy Lopez and other deputies were called out to this woman's home involved the woman's husband, who has a severe case of dementia. If it's true that this woman's allegations are in fact true, you really have to question, how does a person, again, like this get through the screening process of the Sheriff's Department?
Do we know when that allegedly happened?
It happened after the second victim, so it happened sometime between, I would say, March 27th and about perhaps April 8th.
Do we know about the criminal record? What does that entail?
Well, just what little I've been able to uncover, and I mean, it's not anything very extensive. We know that he has a criminal record involving trespass, which is interesting because there were certainly trespass in the case of our client, and it involves possession of marijuana.
And the case involving the 18-year-old, can you go over that a little bit?
What I understand from that case is that an 18-year-old and her mother were arguing. The Sheriff's Department was called out. Deputy Lopez was one of the deputies that responded, and that what happened with the 18-year-old is strikingly similar in terms of the conduct, in terms of what the victims were told, and for Deputy Lopez to supposedly do some type of search. So I know that the District Attorney's Office feels quite strongly that there are, as I said, very striking similarities between what happened with our client, who's 21, and the 18-year-old, and the fact that they're only a day apart.
A lot of times in these kind of cases, the Sheriff's Department says it's conducting its own investigation, so they're investigating their own deputies. What do you think about that?
Well, I guess I'd ask you, what do you think about it? I mean, it's like, you can go back to the old adage, the fox guarding the hen house. I think on the one hand, the Sheriff's Department wants to find out, what took place. On the other hand, they have their own reasons and motives, perhaps to protect the department when it comes to cases like this. And that, of course, becomes, much more of an issue when we talk about the next case.
And I see here something that there's an allegation that this, with your Jane Doe, an allegation that the second deputy there, Escobedo, knew what was going on?
Here's what I know. I know that Escobedo was, when the two deputies enter the residence, and, you know, they were not invited into the residence, they came into the residence. We know that it was Deputy Escobedo who actually went into our client's bedroom and turned on the light and woke her up. And it was Escobedo who did the initial pat-down. Then our client is brought out and handcuffed in the living area with the male who was in the residence at the same time. And shortly after that, that's when Officer Lopez sees a red chest in one of the bedrooms. It had a combination lock to it, and Lopez said to our client, well, I want you to go into the bedroom with me and unlock this chest. He then takes her into the bedroom while Escobedo is out in the living area with the male. And it's at that point that Deputy Lopez first sexually assaults our client and never does ask our client to unlock the chest. So I'm concerned that because of the time that Deputy Lopez was in that bedroom with our client, the chest was never unlocked. You know, what did Deputy Escobedo think was going on in that room during the time that Lopez is in that bedroom by himself with our client? And I think you all know full well that the rules and procedures and policies of the Kern County Sheriff's Department absolutely do not permit a male deputy to do any kind of a real frisk search of a female detainee. I mean, that's very standard procedure throughout the United States. Everyone knows, you know, you don't do that. So I don't know what Lopez thought was going on in that bedroom.
Do you think that deputies feel that they're above the law, or that they have to follow the law?
Well, that's a real generalization. I mean, in general, no, I don't think deputies think that they're above the law. I think Lopez is a sexual deviant, sexual predator. As I said, I mean, you put any label on him you want in terms of what happened here. Do I think all deputies are like Lopez? Of course I don't. No, there are many fine deputies in our county and elsewhere.
So what does the Sheriff's Department need to do to prevent this from happening again? Because although they do criminal record checks, that won't necessarily show if someone is a sexual predator.
Well, as I said, they do psychological testing on these officers before they put them out onto the street. I think they really need to look at whatever system they have in place, and I think it's obvious that they're not catching people like Lopez. I mean, as I said, I mean, here are the guys on the street for 2 weeks, and this is already taking place. And one thing I'd like to know, and one of the things we will learn as we discover evidence in this case, what was going on with Lopez from the time that he first went to work for the Sheriff's Department. I believe that he worked either out at Lerdo or at Central Receiving. Well, I can tell you from an earlier case that I had last year against the Sheriff's Department involving a detention officer who also sexually assaulted some inmates out at Lerdo, those things happen. So I'm very interested, as are the parents of my client and my client, as to were there any allegations ever leveled against Lopez during his employment with the Sheriff's Department before he became a sworn deputy.
We're only going to take one more question, and then we're going to move to the next topic.
You said you're bringing this case forward so you can get the truth out there, but you said money is a component. I've got to ask, I mean, you're asking for in excess of $10,000 plus exemplary damages. Can you explain a little bit and what the total might be?
Sure. Exemplary damages, you commonly hear about them labeled punitive damages. Now, under the law, punitive damages are not allowed against the County of Kern. The punitive damages are solely against Deputy Lopez. Those are punishment damages, quite different from the pain, the anguish, the mental suffering that our client is going through as a result of this.
So how much are you seeking overall?
You know, that's ultimately up to a federal court jury, because ultimately, and I don't know if all of you have had an opportunity to really read the claim, this case will be filed in federal district court in Fresno under what's called the Civil Rights Violation Act 1983 of the U.S. Code. So this is going to be a case that will be tried before a federal jury.
And just one little clarification, so I'm unclear, are you suing both the deputy and the county, or not?
Yes, both the deputy and the county, because he was clearly in the course and scope of his employment when this took place.